Welcome back to the Wise Divine Woman podcast, where today we might dig deep about libido health and sexual health for women in menopause. Today, I welcome Dr. Prudence Hall of Prudence Hall Center.com. And I am excited to have her here on the show because I just want to ask her questions like regenerative health, bioidenticals, but more so, we use this term libido loosely, but what does it really mean? Prudence, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Really
Thank
lovely.
you.
And libido, that's a good question to start with.
Yeah, it is because we, is it energy? Is it just this umbrella? Is it sexual health? And I think for a lot of women, it's trying to, when we're in menopause, we're refinding ourselves again. And libido does play a role in all of that, but it's so much more, so much more.
So I would say in the realm of gynecology and obstetrics, which is my field, one of the fields, so it expanded a lot. But libido is, can we have orgasms? Do we have desire? And generally it is for a partner or male or female, whatever that happens to be. And is there that feeling inside that says, yeah, I want that person sexually? I think that this is a narrow definition because really we can use that sexual energy in any way we want. We can create temples of happiness. We can climb mountains, write books, become teachers, and be in service to humanity. And that driving force, it's a desire, I think, to be penetrated and to penetrate life. So this is a little Freudian, but, we do have that desire to be seen, to be understood, to be at one with others, maybe with God, I don't know, but, with others. And the libido helps with that. So one of the things that happens in menopause is that women become isolated. And we separate ourselves from our tribe. We don't have the energy. We don't have the interest. We don't have this is one of the symptoms of menopause is isolation, self-isolation, and not reaching out to friends. And I think that in that state, we have, due to low testosterone, low estradiol, low DHEA, these are all hormones that I think are important to look at in menopause, that drive, that passion, for whatever that happens to be, whether it's a sexual passion or an intellectual passion or a passion to be part of the world, part of the tribe, it goes away. And women kind of go like this to me. And I always talk about sex. They sort of go like, well, we don't really make love anymore. Then I say, well, does that decrease closeness? Oh, yeah. Is it coming from you or from him or her, or what's it coming from? These are very important questions to ask ourselves and important questions to ask when we're working with women, because it is a primary energy, as you mentioned, Dana, primary animalistic energy that drives us on so many different levels. I mean, you look at Clinton.
It does, but that it's not just a sexual instinct of that drive, because that same drive and passion reflects into career, reflects into community, and reflects into ourselves and how we treat ourselves, self-care. So it's not just this animalistic aspect, but that energy, that passion that we get inside then overflows and reflects into all aspects of our lives moving forward. And if we don't have that feeling of being lost is deep, right?
That is absolutely correct. I couldn't agree with you more. And on the other hand, we are mammals. We are animals. The rhinencephalon of our brain has the odors and, of animalistic strength, not quite there, but close to it. And so to actually respect that energy is interesting, to kind of look at that energy. But yes, I mean, I look at Clinton. I mean, he clearly had a sexual libido, but did he only use it that way? No. He created global international adoration from, and people would say, I can't meet Clinton without liking him, because that's charisma. And from him, he used a lot of sexual energy, I think, through that, really connecting with people and creating a global network of people who wanted to work with him. So yes, it does not have to be penetration sexually, but to be able to penetrate other
life
emotionally, spiritually, to be able to unite with them is really beautiful, Dana. It's beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. So if we are, a menopausal woman and we are just not, or perimenopause because it starts early. And I think earlier as the years go on, but
Hmm.
what tests or what things are we looking for? What are the first clues and symptoms so that we can start sort of preparing ourselves or preventing this lack of libido that we talk about?
So, as you mentioned, perimenopause is starting quite a bit earlier. When I started decades ago, it was starting around 42, 43, 44, and then menopause was in our early 50s, late 40s, early 50s. So, perimenopause now starts mid 30s, and it's a decline in estrogen. So, what we look for is we look for a slight shortening by maybe a day or two of our cycles, menstrual cycles, 10 pounds of weight gain, maybe more fatigue, more PMS around the days up leading up to the period. And all of these are indications that the estradiol level, and that's our main female hormone, is lower. And when it's lower, there's fatigue, the brain is a little foggy, we gain the weight, we feel more inflamed, a little bit more. I would say the moods are more discouraged, Dana, more anxious for sure. Some women start to feel very depressed and are put on antidepressants or the birth control pill, thinking that that might help, which it does not help. But not to say that antidepressants don't help, but the birth control pill does not help with this perimenopausal phase. So to be aware of that and then to ask your doctor to analyze your hormones. And now, unfortunately, gynecologists frequently will miss the perimenopausal state given the hormones that they do. But the symptoms alone will make a diagnosis. And then if you add lower estrogen, maybe it's 20% lower, maybe it's 30% lower. You add that and you have your diagnosis and you can treat.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of women are really afraid to ask their doctor for things, right? Like I
Yeah,
try and advocate for them to have these conversations with their medical doctors or gynecologists. And a lot aren't even giving them the opportunity to do hormone testing. What do you need hormone testing for? And it's information to allow you to prepare or at least gather the information and talk about it with someone more functional or integrative.
critical.
But it,
And yeah, what you say about not approaching your doctor, we are your servants. You are hiring your doctor to help you and to guide you. And if doctors don't listen to, the person who's lived with their body for 30 or 40 years and dismisses that, that is really problematic. So I love women to ask me questions and to say, what do you think? And this is how I think. And it's collaborative. It absolutely is collaborative. And that's leadership for women between women. So I love women to really participate and ask me the difficult questions and say, I saw this on Google or I saw this on chat. What do you think of that? And this makes for really good conversations.
absolutely. And I think it's a conversation to even get your husband to start or partners to start talking about with their people as well, because in andropause, the same thing happens, right? And we need to have these conversations in marriage or in partnerships early, like what's going to happen? What do you want to do? How can I help you as well? Because you have many women who are maybe teetering on the other side of the totter where they're like ferocious sexual appetite has increased with their menopause, which is few, but they are out there. And then you have these husbands who are not able to, and they'll just resort to Viagra or other means when they also just need to check their own testosterone levels and estrogen levels, right?
Yes, I love men who come knowing proactively that their testosterone is probably low. And the symptoms would be belly fat, fatigue, anxiety, worry, a lot more worry, weight gain, losing erections, or the erection quality being less sure than it was before, a lowered sex drive. And if neither part of the couple recognizes this, then there's a drifting apart. And men tell me all the time, I think that my wife doesn't love me as much anymore because I reach out to her and I want to connect with her and she's too tired or she doesn't want to. And so communication is key around this, Dana said. It is key to really talk about it and to let your know what you like and how you're feeling and how they can help.
I mean, beyond like surgery or diseases that impair that sort of sexual connection, which is a whole nother hurdle and a whole nother, topic for another day, that openness that and that creativeness that needs to happen. I think the communication and understanding as menopausal women, I'm trying to teach them to be wise and learn about things and share, right? So it's not to be afraid to, really look at their hormone levels, but also manage their stress better, eat better as a couple, or eat better just for themselves as well, because, you've got a few more years to go. You've got to really pull things together. And that actually, if I can say, Prudence, and go back, that's a frightening realization that perimenopause is starting at 35 when there's so many women still trying to have babies at 35.
So generally, reproduction is very successful in our 30s. As we start to raise the follicle stimulating hormone, that's the brain hormone, that's in response to lower estrogen. So if it goes above 20, that starts to get very worrisome because that's really the definition of menopause. You can have periods, you don't have to have periods, but when that FSH rises a lot to that above that number, fertility is really very, very diminished. So it's something that we want to keep fingers on the pulse. And if we know that we want to procreate or to have children, basically, then we make that a priority and we choose a spouse that also wants to have a child. So often women will say, yeah, I mean, he was sort of, unsure about it. And now he's saying that he, at age 39, that he really doesn't want to have a child. And to think about bringing a child into a family where one partner doesn't really want to have it, that's very tough. So to really plan around that and to discuss it, it's probably the biggest deal breaker in terms of who we're going to permanently choose as a mate.
It certainly does. And who washes dishes. So when we're talking that the estradiol starts to drop for us, what are some symptoms that we are going to be expecting once we get into that? When it comes to our sexual health, what are some symptoms that are going to be happening?
Well, I hear all the time that women don't have that driving libido, that they're touched and they feel nothing, or they're kissed and they sort of say, "Oh, come on, let's get this done with." That kind of impatience and lack of sexual desire. There's so many other things that happen. We become tired, sad, depressed. A lot of the same symptoms that men have. We get more anxious. We definitely don't have the same kind of orgasms. So the orgasms are weaker or not at all. And that brings a fair amount of women to me saying, what happened? And so we can look out for those symptoms and pay attention to them and discuss it with your doctor. If they won't check your testosterone, DHEA, estrogen, and a bunch of other ones, then you can suggest that. Oh, I understand that I should check my hormones and have my hormones checked. This is the list.
Yeah.
But then you always know. So I didn't know 4 decades ago, 44 and a half decades ago. I didn't know. I hadn't been taught that in my gynecology residency, although it was a great residency, great with surgery and obstetrics, complicated. We saw the hardest cases probably in the world, but we didn't talk about sex. We didn't
Yeah.
talk
Well,
about menopause.
and food, sex and food. That's
Oh, no, not a single class on nutrition. Not one.
But yeah, so I mean, education is getting up there, but I think it's all the extra new information that's been coming out because research was never focused on that anyways, right? So where does progesterone play a role as it drops in menopause as well?
So estrogen is made throughout the menstrual cycle. On day one, the estradiol level is around 60. And then at ovulation, which is around day 12, 13, 14, 15, sort of 14 days before the period generally, it goes up to 300 to 500. And that really raises women's sex drives because Mother Nature wants us to have a baby. She doesn't want the sapiens to become extinct, although that might happen due to other reasons. And then progesterone stays at about 175 to 200, maybe 225, and then drops right before the cycle. At ovulation, progesterone rises. And so progesterone is really in the cycle to allow the uterus to rest and to maintain the pregnancy. So if we get pregnant when we ovulate and progesterone levels fall, that will initiate a miscarriage. So that's really what one of the abortion
Cycle.
it blocks the progesterone levels.
And then postmenopausal, what happens in those cycles? Because I may be naive, but we're still women and we still cycle and we have ebb and flow. So what does that look like postmenopausal.
Yeah. So I would like to just put forward the notion that there's no such thing as postmenopausal. Now I know that my medical board says it's when you haven't had your period for 1 year. And your FSH is greater than 20. I think they also add that. But the way I look at it, you either have ideal youthful levels, or you have slightly declined levels, or you're in menopause. And menopause could be 44 to about 48. You go into menopause and lose all your estrogen, and you stay in that state for the rest of your life. So you're never past that, because women come in with the mistaken, I'll say, gee, you're pretty deep in menopause. Oh no, I finished that a long time ago. It's like, well, you have hypertension, your cholesterol is high, your sugar is high, you have no estrogen. So it's not only the symptoms that we feel. And a lot of times we want to say, oh, yes, those hot flashes stopped a long time ago. And my heart goes, ugh, because that means they've burned out their adrenals. That means they have no adrenal function. It's not a positive thing. Women
Yeah.
who come in at 55 and are having massive hot flashes, generally their adrenal hormones, those are the stress hormones. They sit on top of the kidneys, and they help us with fight and flight and relaxation. And so when those are burned out or so stressed that the adrenals can no longer keep up with the stress due to menopause in many cases, then the hot flashes stop. But going back to your question, I'm trying to recall your question after going through all that.
Progesterone.
So progesterone levels drop dramatically as they can drop mildly to moderately in perimenopause. And then in menopause, there's just no progesterone left. So progesterone in a healthy range is like 5 to 15, and that indicates anything above 3 indicates ovulation. And so if you want to know if you're ovulating, you can just check the second half of your cycle. And if you have a level greater than 3, you're ovulating. And it's a calming. It releases GABA, aminobutyric acid, in the brain. And that induces a sleepiness, calm, and it's kind of like the brakes on the estrogen. So estrogen says, go, 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 and progesterone says, no, 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 and decreases the estrogen levels. So that's why the beginning of the cycle, we have pretty good levels of estrogen and leading up to the ovulation. And then the second half, the levels are a little bit lower, just a little bit lower. And we need the progesterone because it allows us to have this child. And it's an interesting concept where you say, do we cycle our whole life? Is that kind of what you're saying? We cycle our whole life?
Well, I would think we have an ebb and flow. We don't just stop. We still produce estrogen. I think we still produce progesterone. It's just at our youthful beginning of time levels, or beyond, or even less as we diminish because of life. But when we're lacking progesterone or enough progesterone, and I'll say postmenopausal because it's a time frame. So after 40, our progesterone and our estrogens are dropping. That's when that increase of anxiety and irritability and listlessness sort of play. But am I wrong in thinking we don't produce any hormones? Because I thought the adrenals breakdown does, and or fat cells.
Not much, Dana, because I've
Yeah.
measured hundreds and hundreds, or millions probably, of lab values, because I do labs with each patient each time. And when a woman is in menopause, I'll find a very low progesterone level, 0.2, 0.1, something like that. And she's not really cycling, although this ebb and flow I agree with. We have times of more energy, times of less energy, times of worsening sleep and better sleep. And interestingly, Dana, women can have a period for 3 or 4 years that's completely normal, and she's totally, absolutely in menopause.
Mhm.
So, it's correct that the body keeps on cycling for a number of years. If a woman's 60, I would say that there's very little fluctuations in her hormones. Her hormone levels could be 5, 7, maybe
Right.
10.
And that'll stay
Yeah.
a little
Pretty,
constant.
yeah, really in the menopausal range. She's menopausal for the rest of her life, and things don't get better. More diseases arise. So just when estrogen is low, up goes stress, sugar, LDL cholesterol in the subparticles, the apolipoprotein B. The ApoB goes up, which increases heart disease. Inflammation goes up. So those are the core causes of future diseases. So
Right.
it's not unlikely for me to see someone with hypertension who's maybe had a heart attack even in her 50s if I see her at 60, because she's been in menopause 10, 15, 18 years already. And there's more breast cancer, certainly at menopause, because the whole hormonal software falls apart. And it's not just the estrogen, testosterone, and progesterone that declines. The thyroid declines. The adrenals decline. The pituitary becomes less functional and less tuned and able to release hormones. It's quite a dramatic decline. I call it kind
It
of the,
is. Yeah.
but it doesn't
So
have to be a death march.
I think the biggest question that I have, if we still have time, the biggest question is the new findings, the new release, the new research of how important HRT and bioidentical, any sort of hormone replacement is. I mean, I have so many women in what I do, and they're like, I'm kind of thinking about it. I'm like, yes, please, you need to do it because there is just so much evidence, like that whole teeter totter of your pen. If you wanna help save yourself from all of that, you've gotta level things out. Can you please talk about this?
So recently, FDA removed the warnings, the black box warnings. And I was on TV talking about that we have known for 20 years or more. And certainly I've been talking about it for at least 20 years, how when you go into menopause, you do not have more heart disease. You have much less heart disease. Dana, I've had 4 women out of 40,000 women who have had a heart attack. They're all alive. And of course, I discuss nutrition with them and balance all their hormones back to more youthful levels. But it's just, even having been in this field for so long, I'm astonished that it is so effective in decreasing heart disease, decreased stroke. I have one patient who weighed about 180, 90 pounds, had a stroke, came back, lost weight, got married, and it was like a stroke of luck and joy for her because she was able to really change her life after that. One patient. So hormones are very safe. And they do not increase heart attacks, strokes, dementia. I mean, Dr. Bredesen wrote the great book, The End of Alzheimer's Disease. And he's been saying for years how important estradiol is in terms of brain function. You want to maintain a brain that's healthy? Get on your estradiol. You want to prevent heart disease? Lower your LDL, ApoB. We don't really care about the LDL, but we care about those small dense particles. Lower that. Lower your sugar. So we can prevent, as I mentioned before, so many diseases of aging, including hypertension and diabetes, prediabetes, strokes, dementias, autoimmune diseases. That's a big one that is really, as soon as you go into menopause, your immunity can become quite senescent. Yeah. So it's really important to have your hormones checked, maybe around 35, certainly by 40, and then find out where you are in that trajectory of menopause and perimenopause. And as fast as you can, create youthful physiology by youthful hormone levels. So I don't follow the hormone levels that the lab gives us, Dana, because there are a lot of
Because
sick people in
it's a
that.
fluctuating pendulum of data. So
Yeah,
what's best for women? What is
yeah.
your youthful range?
Right, because there's so many elderly people and so many very sick people that get their blood drawn a lot more than healthy 35 or 40-year-olds, that is skewed very much towards the sick ranges. And I don't think that we should balance our hormones to an 80-year-old or 75-year-old woman. I mean, breast cancer is sky high at 75 if you're not on hormones. So this is a wonderful prevention. It's not dangerous. It changes women's lives. This is why I'm still doing it at my age. And I just love the enthusiasm and the new life and the new passion for life being rediscovered at this age. And it doesn't have to be a slow decline or a rapid decline. It can be a rebirth like the phoenix. At one point, I just saw menopause as like the phoenix. We come out of the ashes, hopefully never go into the ashes, but we come out of the ashes and embrace a new life of meaning and purpose and service and love. And I'm so happy you're talking about this, Dana.
It's so important. I mean, from functional nutrition to thermography to breast health education, these are the questions I get asked. And I'm always, yes, please don't listen to, I mean, you need to open up and research the new research. Like this, just go to PubMed. It's all there. And all the new research is there. And don't be afraid of it. I think we've been so taught and the estrogen, how it affects breast cancer, but estrogen actually protects the breast and protects the mind and the heart and your bones. It's necessary for life. Not
So
only just testosterone for older women to maintain muscle, right? And to build muscle to prevent falls, prevent injuries into their later years. For men, same thing. And then progesterone is part of that, feel good, keep calm, bring anxiety into play. But you won't ever know unless you get your hormones tested and talk to someone professional like yourself who have spent countless years researching and providing hormones for people. And I think it's don't be afraid to have these conversations with your medical doctor because it is important. Even if they don't know what to do with them, at least get the information, find someone else who's going to help you with it, right?
absolutely, Dana. Absolutely. And I think
Yeah.
that so many women have been frightened away by the Women's Health Initiative that basically showed that there was increased breast cancer, increased dementia, increased heart disease. And that was really due to Provera and due to the fact that pregnant mares' urine is not the same thing as the bioidentical, exactly the same hormones that we use. And pharmaceutical industries make these hormones. It's not only the compounding hormones, pharmacies that will do them. Just going back to men, Abe Morgenthaler is the father of testosterone therapy for men out of Harvard, fabulous urologist, and kind of explained or talked about how he was vilified on campus. His icons would come up to him and say, "You're giving testosterone to men. You're a disgrace to the field. You're causing prostate cancer." And he changed that field where testosterone, unlike what I learned in my urology residency for men, does not increase prostate cancer. It helps prevent it. So we aren't quite there yet in terms of women's health. There's a little bit more work that we have to do about can women who have had breast cancer take estrogen? And generally, the answer is yes. There's a good book out on that, by the way, Estrogen Matters. Excellent book, Estrogen Matters, and everybody can get my book for free. They go on thehallcenter.com and it's called Radiant Again and Forever, and you just download it. Um,
Beautiful.
and yes, so hormones are important.
They are.
I'm glad that you have been talking so much with your clients and your tribe.
I do. I think it's amazing. And people are really afraid of not knowing where to get it and I think that's just all starting to bubble out and be there for people. A little different here in Canada than in the United States, but it's getting there. Right? It's getting there. So I'll have everywhere you can find Prudence Hall everywhere on our show notes for sure, and where you can find that that she's offered as well. But I always end with, what is a word of wisdom that you've held tight to or that you share often with your people?
So there's the smaller picture and the bigger picture. And the smaller picture is how you handle your menopause will determine the entire next 40 or 50 years of your life. It's that important. And the bigger picture is follow your bliss, follow your passion, create, be a rebel in your life and don't necessarily do what the parents, the priests, the politicians tell you to do, but really go inside and yourself and heal your trauma. I spent a number of years going back and healing all the trauma from medical school and, all the childhood things that happened. And life is waiting for us. It's waiting for us to show up and to give the gifts. There's only us. There's only me who can give this certain kind of gift and you who can give your certain kind of gift and I don't want to say not to doubt ourselves, but to have confidence that we are being guided. Life is guiding us. Everything is a lesson. And, I'm an ardent student. Become an ardent student of life.
I love that, Prudence. That is absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. I thank you so much for being part of the show and sharing your passion for life and your passion for your clients and the passion for women's health. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you,
You're
Dave.
welcome. So that was an amazing show for the Wise Divine Women podcast. Again, we are just trying to teach you how to go from fed up to faith-fueled, helping you become the wise, divine women that you've been called to be. Thank you so much for showing up today, and share it all with your friends.